Urbanology, yeah, the art of war with love and peace. Urbanology, the art of war with peace and
This is Tony Rogers, the host for Urbanology, the art of soul, and many of you know it's really the art of war. But I've been doing Harlem Week for so long, I got soul in the back of my mind. But it's Urbanology, the art of war, and we have a really great guest, a person that I've known, wow, for almost 60 years, if that's easy to believe. But the brother, we went to high school together. We were on the train going down to the military, together. And we have just been together for a long period of time. And it gives me a great pleasure to allow for you to hear the voice of Rafee Kamaal. How are you doing,
Tony.
brother?
Tony, it's great to be alive, brother. How are you?
Hey, man, just finished Harlem Week, which is a misnomer because Harlem Week is longer than a week, but nevertheless, Harlem Day was just the day before yesterday, and we celebrated with thousands and thousands of people. It was a labor of love, but it's over. You can catch much of it is streaming on HarlemWeek.com. If you go to that website, you'll see a lot of it. But I want to just talk about you, brother. I mentioned at the head of the show that we've been together for about 60 years. George Washington on the train down to the military. Uh, when actually you were the first one to really tell me about Vietnam on the train going down. I think we were going to Fort Jackson, and you were saying, "Man, you know what Vietnam is?" And I said, "Nah, I really don't know. I'm just getting out of here, man." And then you told me, and you said, "I ain't going." So neither one of us went with your advice. I found the way not to do that, but nevertheless, tell us what happened to you to allow for you to be the executive that you are in production and all of the things that you're doing now, my brother.
Well, brother, I'm going to start at the beginning, man. When I met you in high school, like you said, George Washington, G-Dub,
Right.
the country club, easy to get in, hard to get out.
That is true.
But I made it. Brother. And,
yeah, we made it. A lot of us made it. Some of us are not with us anymore because it's been a long time, man.
Yeah, brother.
Been a long time. Yeah.
Lost a lot of good souls, man. So, and after Dub, man, I went to Manhattan Community, then to Bernard Baruch to study accounting and entrepreneurship. But I was going mostly at night. So I was drafted into the Army because I was going at night, as opposed to the day. Yeah, man. So that's when I ran into you again.
Yeah. We're on the same train.
Yeah, brother. And that wasn't the best experience for me right from Jump Street, and I tried to express that as vociferously as possible. So I got down to, like you said, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I expressed that to them also. How unhappy I was to be there. They said, "Well, we understand that, but you're going to be for the next 2.5 years at least." And I said, I don't think so. And I was able to work my way out of there in about 6.5 months.
which was amazing to me, brother. But
Well, we had as I say, we had a failure to communicate. So got back home, and a lot of people were amazed to see me come back home that quickly, including my father. But we hugged and worked it all out. And from then, I just started working. Basically, I started working as an accountant for a couple of companies. One being a computer school, and a few other companies, and a few other places. And that brought me into the. I met a brother named Herb Graves, who was a computer specialist.
Right. And
he
computers were not necessarily that popular then.
Exactly. I didn't know that much about it, but
nobody did.
I learned quickly, and I was down at the old RKO building down on Broadway, and he said, I got an accounting assignment if you want it, man. There's a casting agency that needs an accountant. If you want a gig, man, I can get you in there. And that basically got me into the business. Yeah, man. So stayed there for a couple of years, and they did mostly commercials and extra casting. Matter of fact, one of the guys who was there was a guy named Marty Richards who passed away. Marty went on to marry into a lot of money and became a big producer, doing shows like Chicago, etc.
Wow.
And yeah, man. So, but that was another entree into something called Third World Cinema, which Cliff Frazier was part of, and we'll talk about Cliff a little bit later. Yeah, Mr. Cliff Frazier, an extraordinary human being. The late Cliff Frazier passed away last year.
Yeah, I did a story on him, you know. Yeah, I did a story on Cliff. Cliff was a beautiful guy.
Outstanding human being, man. Outstanding human being.
Responsible for a lot of people getting on Broadway.
Yeah, not only getting on Broadway, but getting in TV, film.
Right.
And all kinds of media, man. I was one of them. So I went through that program in that was about 1972. Gave me an opportunity to work on the Superfly.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And across 110th Street. I was only on there for a minute, man, because at that point in my life, I just kept on moving. I went from Superfly on the set with Curtis Mayfield. They went over to across 110th Street with Tony Quinn and Anthony Cacciosa.
And what were you doing in the films? I mean, what was your role behind?
Well, basically at that point, don't forget, I just started. I just gone through the training program with Third World, so I was basically a trainee. I was an intern. Trying to learn the business.
And what were your duties, basically, as an intern?
Whatever they wanted me to do.
Whatever they told you to do.
That's right, brother. Making very little money.
But making some good contacts, though, I'm sure.
And learning good, and learning the business. Right. So as I was progressing in that area, one day I read the Amsterdam News, and there was a nice article in there on this husband and wife team, African American husband and wife team that were in television. Right. Now back then, doing film, you did a film maybe, especially in New York, man, you maybe did a film once in a while. Most of that stuff was done in California or someplace else. So I said, wait a minute, let me see if I can get into TV, man. I know that's 24/7. So I contacted them. They were Fred and Felicity Dukes. Now, most people don't know this brother and sister, man, but they were some of the baddest producers in the world, man. They were doing stuff. They were doing anything from beauty pageants, music variety specials, all kinds of stuff. I hadn't heard of them before. Right. So I contacted them and basically hounded them for the next 6 months.
Was there any relationship to Bill Dukes?
Not that I know of. I got asked at some point. I'll ask them next time I speak. So, like I said, I hounded them for about 6 months. They eventually let me come on board. And when I came on board, once again, as an assistant, but I started to learn about. First thing I did was a show up around where I grew up, up in a little past Dykeman, called teleprompter cable.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
as you and I probably both know, man. Back then, there was no cable.
I know.
Matter of fact, we had antennas, and the reception was pretty good until cable came in. Then the reception got fuzzy.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I knew a brother, couple of brothers who was the first to start doing the installing of the cable, because a lot of times they didn't install the cable like in the projects and other places like that. So they got some brothers to help do that. I remember.
exactly. So I wound up working with Frederick Felicity doing a show. Now there were no shows on TV. Don't forget, BET doesn't start for at least another 8 years.
Yeah.
MTV doesn't start for another 8 years. So there's
Right.
no only thing you got. So they put us on. We had a little show. Matter of fact, I did a show with Teddy Pendergrass when he was still with Harold Melvin and the
Harold
Brunos.
Melvin, yeah.
Yeah, we did a bunch of shows up there at teleprompter. Me still not knowing about cable, man. So I was doing a show, and we kept on stepping.
Uh-huh.
The show was called The Drum, with a sister named Freddie Rodriguez.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful sister. So from there on, I just started working with Fred. We started doing beauty pageants around the country. Back at that point in the early 70s, there were a lot of beauty pageants, especially local ones. The New York Miss Universe, New York Miss America. I worked on a couple of national ones. There was the Black America pageant back then, and was doing that, and then had the opportunity, because I'd been in the business for a couple of years. I was given the opportunity to do a series of specials from the Apollo Theater.
Okay.
Now you have to understand something. This was in 1976.
Uh-huh.
The Apollo had closed.
Yeah, I know.
Frank Schiffman Jr. had been trying to sell the Apollo for a number of years. It sold like $2 million. And because he couldn't get the acts anymore, because they would
go down to Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, man. Before they were doing five. They had to do 5 shows a day at the Apollo, man. And he said once they went down to places like the Madison Square Garden, etc., they said, "Wait a minute, no, we're not going to be doing that." And they couldn't get first run movies,
right?
Because the companies wouldn't sell them that, so they were basically closed. So we helped to open them up. Fred and Felicity and the company was called Westinghouse Group W, which we used to have the Mike Douglas show. So we went in there. We were supposed to do 6 national TV specials. We wound up doing 2. And the reason for that is because the Apollo was a shell, didn't have anything in it, so we had to bring everything in there. Between that, and they said, well, we're spending too much money. It wasn't too much money, but they like in so many other things, they only had one sponsor. I think it was General Foods. I remember there's a series just came out here recently, Summer Soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also only had one sponsor, and one of the reasons why you never saw it. It was done back in the 70s, but you never saw it. Matter of fact, it was done back in the late 60s. You never saw it because they couldn't get sponsorship for it. So we ran into the same problem. And my one regret, 2 regrets. Although back then, as you know, in the early 1970s, we had a fiscal crisis, not just in New York, but around the country.
That's right. Gerald Ford told New York to drop dead.
Exactly. And so, it told New York to drop dead, and that was basically from white folks. Black folks were catching hell.
You know that.
And at that point, I really didn't have a lot of money. I was trying to, matter of fact, I just come out of a relationship with a beautiful sister. Matter of fact, she had starred in Shaft. She played the ingenue. And we were living together, man, trying to take care of some business, not having a lot of money. So at that point, in '76, I couldn't put together enough money to buy the Apollo, nor keep the series going, which was really unfortunate, because that series should have gone on forever. Let me tell you some of the acts that we had. We had Mighty Clouds of Joy, Ashford and Simpson, LaBelle, the Clark Sisters, Taj Mahal, Cab Calloway, the cast of Bubbling Brown Sugar, Honey Coles and his dance group, and Stephanie Mills. So it was. That was just the beginning.
Was there any recordings of those things?
Yeah, that's like I think I still have a half an hour. I think on three-quarter tape. A half an hour of one of the specials.
Wow, that's almost like Summer of Soul. That was in a basement for years before it came out.
Exactly. But we aired nationally these two specials, 60-minute specials. So we went on from there once again. But let me tell you, let me back up a little bit. I don't know if you know who was because Solicitor and I had the opportunity to be the first private owners of the Apollo.
Yeah, that was before Percy Sutton and his people.
Oh, way before. I say Percy was like in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But guess who wound up, and you can go on Wikipedia, guess who wound up being the first private owner? Because don't forget, once you become a nonprofit, you can't own a nonprofit. Right. You can operate a nonprofit, but you can't own it.
Like Madison Square Garden is a non-for-profit.
Exactly. So everybody further on doesn't own the Apollo. They're a nonprofit. The state regulates it on behalf of the public.
Mm-hmm.
So the first owner of the Apollo was, I'll put it nicely, a street entrepreneur named Guy Fisher.
Guy Fisher, yeah.
Guy Fisher ran it for about a year. Did a couple of shows with that, I think, with Parliament Funkadelic. And then I think somebody dropped a dime on him because he went to jail for the next number of years. That's when it went into the hands of the state. And then it closed down again for a couple of years, and then Percy negotiated a deal, from my understanding. And they gave Percy, my understanding, a hard time, too, man. Percy had been borough president, running for mayor, and they still gave him a hard time.
A real hard time.
That's what I heard.
Mean, that's when we were working with Percy, and we had to get. I mean, the Apollo was in. We had to clean it up. I mean, they had. It was in really bad shape. So when he got it, that was a hell of a thing. I'll never forget going in there at night, cleaning and doing all of that stuff. But that was, they're still giving us hard times, so it's nothing new.
Yeah, brother. Well, brother, yeah, we've been getting a hard time since we got here. Another story. So
what happened after that?
Well, after that, I'm interested. I did a show called Today's Black Woman. Prior to that, it was called For You Black Woman. It started in '77.
Right.
Today's Black Woman transitioned to in 1980 to For You Black Woman, hosted by Frida Payne.
Okay.
Most people don't know. If you ask them, who was the first African American woman to have her own straight talk show, not a music variety show, because Ella, what's her name, had her first talk show, but it was a music variety show. But the first straight up talk show, I always ask people, who do you think they said?
I'm not
the Big
sure.
O. They say the Big O.
No, it wasn't her. I remember.
No, but the first, and I know it wasn't her, but the first straight talk show. It was Della Reese had a variety show. There was one other sister had another variety show, but the first strictly not music variety show, but straight talk show, and it was a show I worked on.
Was that Frida Payne?
No, that was right before Frida. I'll make that transition. In 1977, Today For You Black Woman, which Fred and Felicity produced, there was 3 hosts to that show. A woman named Alice Travis, who was a local commentator in New York. Nell Bassett became the next host, and she was a radio personality. And then in 1980, Frida Payne took over, and we made that show, and that show lasted to 1984. Don't forget, Oprah didn't go on until 1984.
Right.
So we were on 7 years before that. But most people don't know who really were the first African American women to host a national. Because we were national talk show on the ABC O&Os here in New York and around the country. So I did that until 84.
Right.
Mostly between here and California. Did a lot of shows out of Frida's home, man, with everybody from Greg Hines to Red Fox to Richard Pryor. Did everybody. And that show was on nationally.
How was Frida to work with? A lot of people said
she was beautiful, man.
Yeah, because there were always people about Frida was a little difficult, you know. But
never. For the 4 years I worked with Frida, she was a jewel, man. She was beautiful. Let me tell you a story about that. So the syndicator, a nice Jewish guy, who's no longer here, Charlie Gerber, was a syndicator of both of those, For You Black Woman and Today's Black Woman. So I asked Charlie one day. I said, Charlie, I want to do a show. He said, what do you want to do? Come on. I want to do a show on the authenticity of the Bible. But I'm not going to tell you who I want to do it with. He said, okay, go ahead, man. This is national. So I said, I called this brother down in Atlanta, who was a historian on the Old Testament.
Right.
I said, I want you to do a discussion with a gentleman I know up here in New York. He said, no problem, I'll be up there because Today's Black Woman was a national show. Anytime you get exposed. Now, the person I brought in was Dr. Ben.
Oh, boy.
I brought in Dr. Ben, man, and we saw it was Dr. Ben. You know, it couldn't be a debate because you can't really debate Dr. Ben. You may not fully agree with all the dates, but Dr. Ben got the dates and the times.
Everything.
But it was a beautiful, and I still have that 3/4.
Oh, man. I like. Are you going to publish any of those things, man?
Brother, probably not, man. But we can talk. But like I said, it's on 3/4, man. But this is another.
Because the shit, you know, that's history, man. In some kind of way, just like the Marcus Garvey, you know, soul piece. I mean, that's history. And we'll talk about it later because there are ways that might can be done through some of the national, international, on-demand programming that I'm working with through Soul City. But we'll talk about that because, you know, we have to preserve that stuff, man.
I got you. So as I said, I did that show up until 1984. Did another show on NBC called Rafee Show. Which a brother from there used to be a show called What's Happening. And the one brother from that, a brother named Haywood. Haywood from that show was one of the hosts. Did that show for about another year or two. That didn't last well, but that was on NBC O&Os. And I eventually made it to a transition. Oh, in the meanwhile, Kareem, who's an old friend of mine.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's an old friend of mine. We used to do, when he was off in the summertime, most people didn't know, we were traveling the world, man, doing our I guess what you call it, when Bill Cosby had a show called I Spy. We were doing our international travel, doing clinics around the world, man. We went to everything from Baghdad to Istanbul, to Manila. We traveled the world together doing clinics and just having fun. So in that period of time, after I did Today's Black Woman, took a little bit of time to do some of that. Then
did you record any of the stuff that you did?
No, I think they did in some of these countries that we didn't. Then after that, I created a show that I had been wanting to do for a while called In the Black. In the Black was a series that dealt with financial affairs from an African American perspective mind. So this is a story with that. That show was on from 1984 for a while. I'll tell you how long it was. I tried to get that show. I went to all kinds of, I've been in business now for a number of years. So I
Right.
tried. I went to various stations, networks. Everybody telling me, "Well, it sounds good, Kamal, but I don't know. I'll come back and see it in another year, or maybe another 2 years."
Hmm.
So I went once again. I went back to. I went to another publication called Broadcast and Cable, which at the time now I think it's just broadcast. Maybe it's
Hmm.
Broadcast and Cable now. No, it was just broadcast back in the day. Now it's
Hmm.
Broadcast and Cable, and by another name too. So I pick up one issue, and there's a brother on the cover, a Broadcasting Cable with a 2x4.
Hmm.
Now he got two white boys, executive media executives on each side of him.
Hmm.
I said, wait a minute, I got to meet this brother. Got a 2x4, just my type of brother. So I contacted him, cold call. I cold called him, and his name is Plilio Marshall. I think Plilio might still be. I spoke to Plilio a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
I introduced myself. I told him how long I've been in the business, what I had been doing. He said, do me a favor, call me back in 3 days. So a lot of those folks that told me no, I called them back in 3 days and call up Channel 9.
Mhm.
You know, I called up Channel 9, some people I talked to before that told me to kind of get the brush off. Said,
Mhm.
Mr. Kamal, we'd like to talk to you. So I wound up doing a half an hour, I guess, to appease Marshall, Marshall with the 2x4. So they let me come in there to pitch a half an hour special on how to, in the black, entrepreneurship, personal finance, etc.
Mhm.
And it wasn't just going to be a black show. It was for show anybody that had enough
Right.
sense to watch.
Mhm.
That show went from a half an hour. You know, I had to do my own promotion, of course. That's how you work in this business. I got a nice little piece. They hadn't had anything in Variety in years. I got a
Right.
nice review in Variety. That show lasted 10 years. That show was on from 1984 to 1984 to 1994.
Right.
Carolyn Jones, a super advertiser that passed away some years ago. A beautiful sister. She was a host of the show. Had a number of reporters, and some of those shows are now in the Smithsonian, because Carolyn is in the Smithsonian with some of her work, and she took some of my shows with her.
Wow.
So did that show for 10 years as I continued to travel with Kareem, doing the clinics and other stuff like that.
Now,
And
when you
BDC.
what type of clinics? It was just clinics dealing
The
on
basketball.
history.
No. These are basketball clinics for the young people around these countries.
Oh, I see.
That's it. I know we got the what we get to? We got the Iraq, Baghdad one time. And interesting thing is, I hooked everything up here. We get to Baghdad, they didn't know we were coming. So that was interesting. But we worked it out. That was one of many stories. But yeah. So
this was when Kareem. Well, I questioned who changed the name first, you or Kareem?
Oh no, Kareem. And a lot of people think that I followed him.
Right.
This is that story. Now let me tell you the story. As you know, in what year was Roots? The TV series Roots.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the late 1970s.
Yeah.
It was the late 1970s.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say 80, but yeah, you're right. Well, I guess they had the sequels in 80s because that's. But yeah, the late 1970s.
It was late 1970s, because I think it might have been 76 too.
Yeah.
And that's when I changed my name. I've been studying Islam, but don't forget the characters that Alex Haley talked about came from Gambia, and Gambia was an Islamic country.
Right.
So me, as just beginning to study that, I said, let me go back. So that's when I changed my name. So that was the story. Let me tell you something. So I did it. Let me go back a little bit. I did right after doing the Apollo series. I did a dance show here in New York, a local dance show in New York called Solar Live.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, Solar Live was on for a couple of years, and
I didn't know you did it though.
Oh yeah, man. With Fred and Felicidad. Once again, we're fed for listening. And matter of fact, years before BET, years before MTV, we were the first ones to play music videos. I was playing Rolling Stones videos, and people thought we were having Rolling Stones live live on the show. You got the Rolling Stones coming on, man? I said, yeah, they'll be on. Check it out. So we had live performances by Al Green, Whitney Houston's mother, Sister Houston. We had a whole lot of live acts, but also
any of that stuff recorded?
I don't know,
or
brother. Only thing I know is on YouTube, one of the young kids that were on the show that I guess when he became an adult, maybe his father had pre-recorded one of the shows with Jerry Bledsoe, because Jerry was the host. And I saw a little bit of some video on YouTube, but no, we never kept any of that.
Man, because it's just about timing, because all of that history you're talking about was worth more than gold, platinum, if that had been.
But that's why I was so grateful that I didn't get a chance to buy the Apollo, or at least continue the ongoing series. Can you imagine back in the 70s or the 80s, brother? And I was just beginning when we did those two. Matter of fact, George Kirby was the host of the. George Kirby, I don't know if you know George Kirby.
Comedian,
George Kirby, yeah. A couple of years later, George Kirby went to jail, man, because he tried to sell some drugs to some undercover store. But George was a real talented brother, man. And I was sorry to see him go away.
Right. He was a funny guy, too.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, man. And, he can do impressions, all kinds of stuff. George is cool. So, okay, so after the In the Black, which went off in 94, as I said, I continued to do some international clinics. Then I was asked to do a couple of documentaries. I did documentary with some other folks on Queen Latifah, Marilyn Monroe, and Reba McEntire for the Lifetime Network portrait series. We took those. Then I took some we were going into 2000, so took a little more time off to do a couple other things, and that was I also did a documentary with Kareem, the Harlem Rins. I don't know if have you seen the Harlem Rins?
No, I don't think I have. Is that on YouTube?
No, the Harlem Rins, man. It won the NCCC award for best documentary on the shoulders of giants. The Harlem Renaissance, the Harlem Ren basketball team. Yeah, man. That's still out there. That's on DVD. So that's still out there.
I would like to see that. I'm not sure that I recall that one.
You can go to Amazon. I'm sure it's still up there. On the shoulders of giants. Kareem's Harlem Rins. Produced the Harlem Rins.
And it's from the Harlem Rins, the basketball team, right?
Exactly. Play out of Harlem Renaissance. That must have been some.
That was a hell of a time,
man. You got to dance. You got to play some basketball and dance.
Right.
At the Harlem Renaissance, please, man. That was serious. So we did a show on that, man, which was well received. That was around 2011 or so.
And it's funny because the Harlem Rins was the official Harlem basketball team, because the Harlem Globetrotters, as you know, was from Chicago. They just took the name. But the Rins were the ones that, were the bad guys.
Oh, yeah, and the Rins were beating everybody all over the country.
Yeah.
Including the Globetrotters. So it's the Rins were some bad brothers.
Yeah.
That suffered a lot of the discrimination and racism throughout that time, and what we still have to do with some of the madness we're still dealing with.
Right.
So so after that, man, that takes me up to about the 2011 plus. I decided to slow down a little bit. Yeah, man, and started the. I became president of my co-op board, and I did that for another 10 years. And then I had some health issues, so I had to slow down a little bit more. And basically, that takes me to today. And hope I'm not moving too fast.
Well, no, man, you're moving just the way it's supposed to be. I'm glad that we are able to record this because history is something that becomes his story. Whoever is the last man standing then tells what they perceive things to be, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is really historic to the point where people just don't know, and people should be able to understand. I mean, there are now ways that these things can be put into the social media world. But are you thinking about putting together your autobiography?
Well, let me back up a little bit. What I'm working on, there's a book out now called After Dark Leviticus.
Oh yeah. I gotta get that. That's what Amazon, right?
That's it. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Noah Hankin, one of the best of friends, wrote the book, man. Excellent book, man. But what I'm working with now, Mal Wolford, who is also one of the best of friends, and Ron Scott, who did publicity for the best of friends. We're working on a book now because the book it's an excellent book that Noel did, but it's basically focusing on the best of friends and what they did. And what they did was a beautiful thing, man. Especially during that time in the 70s and the 80s. Once again, everybody talks about Studio 54, but they were only in existence for like 3 years, and blew up. Best of Friends in 8 or 9 years, man. A black organization of young brothers that owned the spot, not just promoted but owned the spot, and produced a hell of a business.
I mean, that was a hell of a time. We, had a group called Blafrica Promotion, and that's how with Lloyd Williams, myself, and a number of others, and that was the foundation, of Harlem Week and the Uptown. Then it was the Uptown Chamber of Commerce, but we would have events. Mal Wolford, and we were all friends. Ron Scott. I just saw him yesterday.
Tony, what year was it? Are you still now?
Yeah, I saw Ron Scott. I talk with Mal, because we, how you talk with people online now. I mean, not online, but in the social media. But we were close to Mal. I was close to Mal's mom, who was, she was, I think, one of the most respected medical physicians, in the country. Matter of fact, Harlem Hospital. Harlem Hospital, has a name, as a place for her. But because Blafrica Promotions, Mal was part of that also, and we did trips, we did all kinds of different things, but that was the foundation of Harlem Week, because we.
What year was that?
Well, Harlem Week started in '74, so it was actually we were, that was like the early, I would like to say the early '70s going into the '80s and the '90s.
Okay.
Yeah, because we started in '74 Harlem Week. That's when we put most of the people in Blafrica were Lloyd Williams, myself, and a number of others, Rosa Rivers, and from Blafrica, Percy Sutton got us to. I was going to law school, so I was working out of the office of Hope Stevens as a clerk, and he was the first black president of the Uptown Chamber of Commerce. And Percy Sutton went to Hope, who was everybody's major lawyer because he was international, and he said, I need to find a way to make tourism come back again. And he says, I want a day. So that's when, Lloyd, myself, and a number of people, we started. Lloyd was the first vice president of the chamber because Hope became the first black head of the Uptown Chamber of Commerce. And so he had a lot of, ways to get to the Percy Sutton, who was the borough president, who had a lot of resources. So we said, we're going to do a day to promote the positive aspects of the Harlem community. And since it was the Uptown Chamber of Commerce, it was like the Boy Scouts, whatever the Boy Scouts do any place in the world, a Chamber of Commerce could do. So, and that's how we got involved with all kinds of different events. But again, through Leviticus and all of the different types of clubs that were coming about, that's how we started getting a lot of different people together as an organization by having these events and promoting these events. Through, we did a lot of stuff with Mal, and it was a great time because it was people who would go out on a Friday. You know how that a Friday and Saturday night, man.
Man, we'd be out there in the afternoon, man, out there at all times. And matter of fact, I started doing promotion. That's one thing. Don't forget, there were very few African Americans doing promotions downtown. We basically started that downtown. Matter of fact, I did my first promotion downtown at a club called Act One.
Act One.
That was 1970.
And we did an event at Act One. I mean, because once that door was open,
exactly.
Black Africa promotion. We did I was just going to say Act One, which is where the ball falls for 42nd downtown.
Right. You know who I did it with? I did it with Baron Moss out of G-Dub.
Wow,
Jose Ibanez out of G-Dub. And another friend I met on Wall Street called Stan Smith, a beautiful brother who passed away.
And Stan, man, I never forget, man, we used to have these dance things, and Stan was a hell of a dancer, boy. And
yes,
Baron, Baron and I, we all were close.
Yeah, and they're no longer here, man. Stan's gone, Baron's gone, Jose's gone.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, man.
And I didn't know that Baron passed. Because you lose track of these guys, man. But Stan was a hell of a dancer. He used to.
Yes, he was. So I'm working with Mal and Ron on a book dealing with the nightlife from 1920 to the 1980s called "Take the A Train." I'll keep you posted on that, how that's coming.
Yeah, so, we had to do something, as far as putting that out there, because that was a heck of a time, boy. We couldn't wait.
Oh, brother.
Could not wait for a Friday and Saturday. Boy, besides, and then, we would go to the Palladium. You remember the Palladium, which was one thing. That's where people would go downtown and people would talk about the different connections between Latin and African Afro-Latin music, but besides the Palladium, people would go downtown, Act One, Leviticus, all of those places were, and it was just people having fun. There was no major, trauma, as far as people.
No, man, we were all clean, just to the nines, and just having a party and having a good time.
Because then we started through Blafrica started doing the boat rides on the Circle Line. We started doing the boat rides, bringing that whole crowd with Mel and everybody. We started doing the boat ride. We were one of the first groups that started doing major dance parties on Circle Line.
Wow.
So we
So,
took it for there. You know, it's funny, man. We used to do trips too with Blafrica. So we would take people to all places in the Caribbean. We would go on a trip. Then we would come back and do a boat ride, and then we would do Harlem Day. And you know, I don't know how we had that energy. You know, a trip, a boat ride, and then we would do Harlem Weekend. That was when we were on 125th Street, and we were there all night, man. You know, we were there up until about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we take an hour sleep and get back up on that Saturday. That's where Uptown Saturday Night came from, because we were up. You know, we were there until about 4 o'clock, man, on 125th Street. And we used to have 4 or 5 stages from St. Nicholas all the way to Malcolm X. Matter of fact, we named Adam Clayton Powell on Harlem Day of 1974. We the first blacks to name a street. And then we named Frederick Douglass Boulevard, 8th Avenue to Frederick Douglass Boulevard, and then Malcolm X Boulevard. So those three street names came through on Harlem Day, which we just celebrated the 48th. But, you know, Camille, you know, I did not know. I mean, I would always see, I knew, you know, you were involved, but I didn't have until we started talking recently that type of background. Matter of fact, you gave me a recording of an interview that you did. And that interview allowed me to understand. I said, damn, you know, this brother, you were the first in doing a lot of stuff in this promotion, marketing, and TV and all of that stuff that I really didn't know.
And brother, I couldn't let you have all the fun.
But it was, you know, and these are the things, and why I'm so happy that we do have WACRs and the Soul Cities, which is a piece that we're now, you know, looking to do some things in Senegal. Matter of fact, we're looking to do a pay-per-view at the Senegalese Jazz Festival in May 2023 to begin to bring African Americans and Africans together, awakening the sleeping giant. We just did a major event during Harlem Week for the 135th birthday of Marcus Garvey. There's a new film out, Redemption, the African Redemption, the life of Marcus Garvey, which did its premiere last Wednesday at Marcus Garvey Park. That's when I caught up with Dr. Jeffries and Congressman Rangel. They're in that documentary, but that people should see, because a lot of people don't know. Nobody, you know, he was the first major international speaker to talk about African heritage and how we need to understand that we will never be free until, you know, we reconnect to Africa.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people didn't like him. You know, W.E.B. Du Bois, they were all, you know, because they were trying to integrate into America. And he was the first one that said, and to this day it's still true, is that that's fine, but you're not American, you're African. You know, he was the first one to say, if you're from Japan, you're going to be Japanese, no matter how long you be in America. You know, if you from Philippines, you're going to be a Filipino, no longer how many generations of Americans you're in. So he said, we're the only ones that, you know, once we got past being Negroes, we became African Americans, but we never really claimed the fact that we're Africans in America.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a work in progress that we need to start working harder on. He was a phenomenal human being, man, and he had a great following here too. Until some of his people got messed up here, man.
Well, you know what happened. You know, that's why the film is great. You know, Roy T. Jones, I believe, is the brother that put that together. But Do you know he's the one that made J. Edgar Hoover? A lot of people say J. Edgar Hoover made his name getting the mafia, but no, J. Edgar Hoover made his name getting after Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey had millions all around the world, and J. Edgar Hoover first started having black infiltrators into to become Garveyites, and that's what brought him down. And, and even to the point where they are saying that he had these ships, man. He had the ships that would go to Africa and bring produce back to America. Black captains. There's a book, and I wrote it down about the brother who was the captain of the Star. I think it was a Starline. And he had a couple of other ships, beautiful ships, but they kept breaking down. Now they're saying that they believe that it was, the infiltrators that kept, they were sabotaging his ships because he was just too powerful. He was, the stuff that he was talking about, and people said, we don't want to go back to Africa. Why do we want to go back to Africa? What he was trying to say is that that's what your home is. That's where you are, And they got pissed off because he met with, I think at that time, the Grand Wizard of the Klan, and he was saying, "Look, man, you don't want us. We don't want to be here." So
exactly, and we still trying to get ourselves mentally together, man. Africa, like you said, man, that's you don't have to go back there physically if you don't want to.
In your mind.
Trade. Yeah, not only your mind, man, but also taking care of business. You can do trade, man, internationally with some of the most inventive human beings on the planet in Africa that are taking care of business in Africa. So there's a whole lot of resources that we have there once we get ourselves together mentally. But not only Africa, man. We're in the diaspora, man, all over the world, man, and we need to start.
Over 60 million people, man, and I'm taking people. I have a trip in December, taking people to Senegal, which is Gorée Island, where most of the slaves in West Africa came through. Matter of fact, you go back to roots, a lot of the slaves all over, because Gorée Island, the tip of Senegal, is a straight shot to the Americas. So they would bring slaves throughout West Africa into Gorée Island. And
exactly.
And it's really important for people to kind of start looking again, because this has been said. I mean, Marcus Garvey started it, but many people have always tried to allow for us to understand that we are African. And Africa is home, and that reconnection will allow for not only Africa, because most of the countries in Africa, man, we're older than the independence of most of the countries in Africa.
Exactly, exactly, man. But
so they're just learning.
We were brought into a crime scene, man, and we haven't gotten over it yet. We still got a lot of self-hatred, not only with Africa, we got a lot of self-hatred with ourselves, man.
That's true.
Which you still have to get over.
That's true.
We got to deal with that. But I don't know how much time we have, Tony.
We got a couple more minutes, man. So I want you to talk about what's next for you.
Okay, a couple of things. As I mentioned, I've been dealing with some health issues, but I'm a producer and an entrepreneur, so that hasn't stopped me. I'm working on putting together a streaming television network called the Jazzy Cultural Arts Network, jcan.tv. If you go to my website, jcan.tv, you'll see an introduction to the network.
But say that slowly so people can hear it. It's J?
Okay. JCAN, the letters, .tv. If you go to my website, you'll see an introduction to what the network is going to look like. No, .tv.
.tv. So JCAN.tv. www.jcan PeaceAN.TV.
Correct.
Okay.
And you see what we're looking to do sometime in 2023. I'm working with some Southeast Asian brothers out in Long Island City that have a 60,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
For production, for distribution, et cetera, et cetera. And we've been working on this project for a while, so we'll see what happens. Once again, I'm depending on my help to be able to not only get it on, but keep it on for a number of years. One other thing, as we mentioned earlier, Cliff Frazier, who passed away this year. I'm also on the board of the Dwyer Cultural Center in Harlem.
Right.
Because of the pandemic and other things, we've been closed for the last couple of years, but we're going to be opening. We're reopening this
on the
weekend.
26th, right?
With the 26th, we'll be there the 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Right.
With the opening, a reception, and with the art, with some extraordinary artwork by artists from the community, which is going to be fantastic. And if anybody wants more information about, because it's complimentary and free, so we welcome everybody to come in. But you have to RSVP.
How do they RSVP?
Okay, it's 212
Mm-hmm.
2222. That's 222 3060.
Say it again.
212 222 3060. Also, there's an email address, which is the letter DCC dot RSVP@gmail.com. So they can do it either way, and we'd love to have them come there, and I think they'll appreciate once they get there.
And what are the times? Because I RSVP'd, and there's also a way that you can give a donation and make a donation,
yes.
Because that Dwyer, again, when Bo Rivers was involved and a lot of other people from Harlem Week, that was, and it still is, one of the a major location as it relates to plays, entertainment, art exhibits, and the like. It's a beautiful place. I'm so glad that work is still being continued with Cliff. I would definitely be there on the 26th. That's historic, man.
Yeah, we're just beginning. The time, August 26th, Friday, it'll be from 6 to 10. On Saturday.
Get there early, because it may be a capacity thing with that, because a lot of people will come out for that, man.
I hear that on Saturday, August 27th, from 7 to 11, and on Sunday from August 28th, from 3 to 8 p.m.
And so the opening night is going to be a blast. That's something that I'm really looking forward to. Even though after Harlem Week, I'm trying to chill, but when I saw that you guys was doing that, I said I have to make sure that I make that.
Outstanding, man. We appreciate it. So that's my story.
It's a hell of a story, man, and it's so important that, for me at any rate, that many of the people like the Mal Wolfhugs and the Ron Scotts and the Baron Moss, especially Baron and the crew, that we all went to school together. We all went to the
Yes, we did with Jose Ibanez. Yes, we did.
Jose Ibanez. When did Jose pass?
Well, that was wild. I don't know if that was in the 90s.
That was some time ago, huh?
Yeah, man.
Because I know Baron was having some health issues, but
yes.
And then I stopped hearing from him, so I kind of assumed that something was happening, because we used to communicate on Facebook and all of that stuff. But Baron but we used to tease Baron. He had red hair and freckles.
Baron was a good guy, man. Good guy. Well, Tony, thank you.
All right,
thank
man.
you, and I appreciate you. And the best to you, man.
Okay, you too, and I'll see you on the 26th.
Take care, bro.
Bye. And this is Tony Rogers, ending WHCR 90.3, The Art of War, with a great interview with my good friend Rafee Kamaal.